Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers here in Korea and around the world, it's 9 a.m. on Tuesday, April 22nd here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to our ongoing coverage of the Sewol ferry sinking, the worst maritime accident in Korea's recent history. It's the 7th day of search and rescue operations at the Paengmok-hang Harbor. Rescue teams are working around the clock in hope of finding any survivors, though so far only bodies, close to 30 of them overnight, have been recovered. Let's go over to our Ji Myung-kil, who's standing by live at the harbour, just 20 kilometres away from the accident site. Myung-kil, what's the latest?
Dozens of bodies were found last night, raising the death toll to 96. The bodies include 2 Chinese and 1 Russian. The rescue team is focusing on the 3rd and 4th floors of the vessel, where the cafeteria and cabins are. Most of the bodies were found on the 3rd and 4th floors of the vessel, where many passengers were at the time of the accident. As you can imagine, there were cries from the parents throughout the night, wailing and howling for their children after they received reports confirming those deaths. Still, 206 people from the sunken ferry remain missing, and nearly 90% of those are students from Danwon High School.
And Myung-kil, what are some of the key rescue operations today?
Well, the divers are trying to extend the guide ropes from the current 5 to 10 to speed up the search operations. And the divers are expected to go in numbers, increase in numbers, to participate in search operations as the neap tides have started. The rescue teams have deployed more than 200 Navy vessels and fishing boats, 34 aircraft and over 500 divers. The rescue team is also receiving foreign support. Experts from the U.S. and Netherlands are here in Chindo helping out with the rescue operations. Since yesterday, 2 remotely operated vehicles sent by the U.S. were deployed to search inside the vessel. This was Ji Myung-kil reporting from Paengmok-hang Harbor.
As Myung-kil touched on there, the international community is reaching out to help. In addition to the amphibious assault ship that's currently helping out in the recovery efforts, the United States is sending a Navy salvage ship that can recover the wreckage of the sunken ferry. Let's get some more details now from our reporter Kim Hyun-bin, who's standing by at the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters in Jindo. Tell us more.
Overnight, the search team recovered 22 bodies, including 3 foreigners. Nearly 900 flares and powerful floodlights from fishing boats helped the divers operate at night. The rescue team continues to search for survivors and is trying to receive more international support in its operations. U.S. Pentagon said on Monday that its military plans to send in a Navy salvage ship to South Korea in recovery of the ferry. South Korea has not formally requested for the ship, but is currently being moved from Thailand. The ship is designed to repair or salvage ships crippled in combat anywhere around the world. In addition, the rescue team successfully dispatched 2 remotely operated underwater vehicles, or ROVs, from the United States for the first time, and 3 experts from the Netherlands are scheduled to take part. Currently, the team is working with Chinese authorities to borrow barges and cranes. There's a briefing in a little under an hour's time about last night's recovery and this morning's efforts, so we'll have more updates at 11 a.m. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Hyun-bin. In the days that immediately followed the Sewol ferry accident, search and rescue efforts were hampered by fast-moving tidal currents. But thankfully, conditions have improved somewhat this week, which should help divers navigate through the treacherous waters near the sunken vessel. Park Ji-won reports.
Calm waves and clear skies. Wind speeds and wave heights were cut in half on Monday compared to the previous day as a high-pressure front moved into the area. Weather conditions have finally turned favorable for search and rescue crews in waters off Chindo Island, and the clear weather is forecast to continue through this Friday. Strong tidal currents, which significantly hampered the rescue operations last week, have also slowed.
Last week was the time when the current speeds were the fastest, and from the 19th it has been slowing down. Starting this Tuesday, the speeds will be at their slowest.
Last week, the maximum speed of the currents in the area were 2.8 meters per second, or over 10 kilometers per hour. That's expected to drop as low as about 1 meter per second, especially from this Tuesday to Thursday. When tidal currents slow, underwater visibility improves with less floating particles in the sea. That's why experts believe this week will be a turning point in search operations inside the sunken Sewol ferry. 박지원, Arirang News.
And over the last couple of minutes, the confirmed death toll has now sadly risen to 99. Prosecutors and police are expanding their joint investigation into the ferry disaster. For more, we have our Kim Ji-yeon live in the news center for more details. Ji-yeon.
Mark, the joint investigative team arrested 4 crew members, including chief engineers and navigators, and imposed a travel ban on 44 people, including the management and owners of the company that owns the ferry, for neglecting their duties to lead the passengers to safety. The Gwangju District Court is to consider the request for the arrest warrant at about 10:30 a.m., which is about 90 minutes from now. Also, the investigative team is planning to expand their investigation into whether it was illegal for the ferry to be restructured to include more cabins and hold more people. The investigative team is also looking to see whether the captain and the crew of the Sewol ferry had adequate training to deal with passenger evacuations and safety in times of an emergency.
And Ji-yeon, how are the authorities doing in terms of determining what was going on during the time the ferry started to tilt and sink?
For that, Mark, the joint investigative team are analyzing retrieved mobile and video records of some 400 people that were on board the ferry to determine the timeline of the events that led the ferry to sink and what actions the crew members took after they learned that the ship was sinking. Prosecutors are also analyzing the messages and cell phone records sent within the crew members and to their families. They're looking to see whether the crew members shared information on how to escape the ship while telling the passengers to stay put. A chief engineer surnamed Park told prosecutors earlier that there was a call to the engineering room telling the crew members to escape, and they escaped through a tunnel that was only accessible to the staff that was on the 3rd floor of the vessel. Prosecutors say that they're trying to find proof of testimonies given by some of the crew members that said they were ordered to escape. They're also considering altering the status of the 58-year-old engineer, named Son, from a witness to a suspect. Son attempted to commit suicide after being questioned by the authorities. I'll be back with more updates later today.
President Park Geun-hye has spoken out in no uncertain terms about the captain and crew of the sunken Sewol ferry, likening their actions to murder. She also gave a slap on the wrist to public officials who have been criticized for inefficiency and backed it up with a real threat to punish those responsible. Yulian reports.
먼저 무엇보다 선장과 일부 승무원들의 행위는 상식적으로 도저히 납득할 수 없고 용납될 수 없는 살인과도 같은 행태였습니다.
Likening the act to murder, President Park Geun-hye criticized the actions taken by the captain and his crew at the time of the accident during a meeting with senior secretaries on Monday. A communications log had revealed that the captain and crew members of the Sewol ferry had called on passengers to stay where they were during the time of the accident. President Park vowed to make sure justice is handed down.
저는 반드시 단계별로 철저하게 규명해서 무책임과 부조리, 잘못된 부분에 대해서는 강력히 책임을 물을 것입니다.
The captain and 2 other crew members are now charged with negligence of duty and violation of maritime law. President Park also had pointed words for public officials, some of whom have been facing criticism for inadequate efforts in rescue operations.
국민들이 공무원을 불신하고 책임 행정을 하지 못하고 있다는 비난을 받는다면 그 책무를 소홀히 하고 있는 것이고 그 자리에 있을 존재의 이유가 없는 것입니다.
During the days following the accident, families of the victims grew furious at the government-related personnel and also the Coast Guard for making conflicting announcements on the number of victims and survivors. The families also expressed frustration that the numbers of rescue personnel dispatched to the site and the numbers announced by the government did not match up. 유리안, 아리랑 뉴스.
Let's now connect live to our Gon So-ah, who is in the city of Ansan at the Korea University Ansan Hospital near Seoul. This is where survivors are being treated and where many of the identified bodies are being transferred to. So-ah.
Mark, around an hour ago, I was here at the funeral hall here at the Korea University Ansan Hospital, where a deceased 17-year-old male student has been released, and the family's cries were very, very painful. Now, mourners visited the hospital throughout the night in grief of the 15 deceased students here who have been arrived earlier here at the Korea University Ansan Hospital, as well as nearby local hospitals. Now, not only acquaintances, but many other citizens expressed their condolences. Meanwhile, around 80 students who survived the ferry accident are being treated here at the hospital. Many of them are suffering from mental stress and depression, but the director of the hospital said in a briefing Monday that their conditions have improved a lot since they arrived here. Now, sophomores and seniors of Danwon High School are expected to return to their classrooms on Thursday, as the school will reopen its doors to let them get back to their daily lives. Now, along with the regular classes, the focus will be on helping the students cope with the traumatic events of the past several days with the help of doctors and therapists.
So, unfortunately, the number of recovered bodies is increasing and it will be hard to attend every single funeral. Where can people pay their last respects to the victims of this sinking?
Well, a group memorial altar will be set up here around 10 minutes from here at the Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall, so families and friends can pay their last respects from Wednesday. Now, meanwhile, around some parents have delayed releasing their children after requesting an autopsy to find out the direct cause of death. They want to know whether their children died from drowning or from hypothermia after waiting inside an air pocket in the vessel. Now, this is critical in determining whether the government was fast enough with their rescue operations, and parents say they will hold the government responsible if this was not the case. Now, today, parents of the children on board of the sunken Sewol ferry will announce an appeal in front of Danwon High School, urging for swift rescue operations, while also criticizing the media for its indiscriminate reports on this incident. Now, this has been Kwon So-ah reporting live from the Korea University Ansan Hospital.
Now, as So-ah just reported there, the Sewol ferry tragedy has hit Danwon High School especially hard, with more than 300 of its students on board the vessel when it capsized. Like So-ah also mentioned, the school will reopen its doors this week. The grieving students will be met with the help of professionals who will guide them through the most difficult moment of their young lives. Our Kim Sung-hyun has this report.
Despite still being in severe shock, students of the Danwon High School in Ansan will be returning to their classrooms this week. Laughter and joy filled the ship when it departed on a school trip to Jeju Island, but now there are only tears left. The Sewol was carrying 325 students from Danwon High School in their junior years. The school has temporarily closed twice since Wednesday, the day of the incident, but there were concerns from parents of sophomores and seniors who asked that students be able to return to their daily routines as soon as possible. The Gyeonggi Provincial Office of Education held a briefing Sunday and announced its plan to reopen the school this Thursday. When students return, the focus will be on helping the students cope with the traumatic events of the past several days.
We will primarily progress with a therapy program to help the students recover from the mental shock, and will gradually return to usual class schedules.
There are currently around 100 doctors and therapists ready to help at the high school. The students of Danwon High School are also grieving over the death of their vice principal, who was rescued from the Sewol ferry, but later committed suicide over apparent feelings of guilt. Experts worry that many students will be affected by post-traumatic stress disorder, which can occur even years after a shocking incident occurs. Kim Sung-hyun, Arirang News.
US President Barack Obama is expected to spend most of his time in Korea this week expressing sympathy over the ferry sinking and the loss of so many young lives. President Obama will spend 2 days in the country from this Friday. The White House says Obama has ordered the US to provide everything it can to help the ongoing search and rescue operations. An amphibious assault ship, the USS Bohom Richard, is already in the area helping, and the salvage ship, the USNS Safeguard, is on its way from Thailand. The US leader is also expected to assure Seoul of Washington's security commitment to the Korean Peninsula and to promote bilateral economic ties. Now, all fingers are being pointed at the captain of the Sewol ferry, Lee Jun-sok, who abandoned his stricken vessel once he realized she was going down. His actions are under investigation. An interview he gave with a local broadcaster, in fact, in 2010 has come to light. And what the captain said then seems so brutally ironic now. Shin Se-min reports.
If the passengers follow the lead of the crew members on board from Incheon to Jeju Island, I believe our ship is safer than any other form of transportation.
This is Lee Jun-sok, the captain of the Sewol ferry that went down off Korea's southwestern coast last week in a 2010 interview with Korean broadcasting station OBS. At the time of the interview, Captain Lee Jun-sok was in charge of another large passenger ferry, the Ohamanaho ferry, which was owned by the same Cheonghaejin shipping company that owns the Sewol. In the interview, Lee guarantees the safety of those on board his vessels. He also says that he does not fully trust a ship's machines and that he puts more confidence in himself as an experienced sailor.
Once visibility is compromised, it's hard to rely on machines. The naked eye is more reliable.
The radio transcript and audio files between the Sewol ferry and emergency responders released Sunday show the panic and chaos that ensued on board the Sewol Wednesday morning after it encountered trouble. Now, more than 5 days later, questions are being asked about the captain, his actions, and what he did or didn't do that led to the death of so many people. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
As the investigation into this tragedy deepens, former crew members and employees of the Sewol hose operator have started to speak out, and not in a positive light. Many of them resigned after years of service because of growing safety concerns and serious problems with the ferry. Paul Lee reports.
Last Wednesday, on April 16th, the Sewol ferry was traveling near the southwestern coast of Jindo Island when it suddenly made an abrupt turn and began listing to one side, leading to its eventual capsize. But how could a 6,800-ton vessel have lost control so easily? According to YTN News, previous crew members who worked on the ferry say they faced repeated problems with the vessel's balance control. Even when compared to other passenger ships, former crew members say the Sewol had trouble maintaining control amid external shocks from the waves. They also say the vertical extension and renovations to the cabin deck raised the ship's center of gravity without taking into proper account the water levels in the ballast tanks. With these mounting safety risks, the former crewmates said they vowed to never go out to sea again on the Sewol ferry. A joint investigation team will extend their probe into maritime government officials in order to explain how such an unsafe vessel passed inspections. Authorities have added that the weight of the Sewol's cargo was also falsely reported, further supporting widespread allegations of a lack of proper supervision and management, all accumulating into a deadly recipe for disaster. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Air, land and sea, scores of boats and hundreds of Coast Guard, Navy and civilian divers bob up and down in the water, and unmanned submersibles scour the seabed. The sun setting for the day doesn't stop efforts either, as flares fired from boats and aircraft illuminate the night sky. Our Misorang reports.
It's a battle against time to find missing passengers of the horrific accident. The joint rescue team, composed of civilians, government and military personnel, work around the clock in their search. On Monday, some 200 vessels were deployed in the search mission. The small rubber boats from the Coast Guard and Navy sent their divers into the water, while small fishing boats were used by civilian divers. Large patrol ships were dispatched further out, providing safety equipment for the divers and standing by in case of any emergencies. The core operations were conducted from rescue ships. The Paengmok-hang vessel carried salvage equipment, and Cheongae-jinam vessel specialized for underwater rescue, while the Dokdo amphibious assault ship had medical facilities and communications equipment. Aside from the vessels, some 30 aircraft were deployed, while over 600 rescue workers, including those from the Navy, Fire Department and civilian divers, took part in the operation. This joint rescue team managed to extend the guideline by 15 meters, stepping up the in-vessel search efforts. Meanwhile, 2 remotely operated vehicles were deployed to search inside the vehicle and side-scan sonars to identify bodies that could potentially drift away. The search efforts continued late into the night when squid fishing boats came to the aid with their lighting equipment.
We're keeping the fishing lights on here all night to help the rescue workers during their search.
Joint search efforts continue in order to find each and every person and return them to their loved ones. Misorang, Arirang News.
With almost 6 full days passing now since the ferry started to sink, most experts now believe it would be a miracle if there were any more survivors found. This, however, isn't stopping the families of the missing and the entire nation hoping for good news. Son Jung-in reports.
우리 친구들아, 끝까지 희망 잃지 말고 그리움에 지쳐있는 우리 곁으로 꼭 살아서 돌아와 다오.
They have never met the students who were on board the sunken Sewol ferry, but those gathered sobbed all night and begged them to come back safe and sound. Everyone prayed, hoping for the warmth of the candlelight to be sent to those who may be still trapped in the deep, cold water.
저와 같은 어린 학생들이
It just breaks my heart, the thought of students like myself trembling in fear and dying.
Students, parents, children, and grandparents all united as one as they held on to positive thoughts, waiting for a miracle to happen. They cried out loud, "Do not lose hope and do not give up."
We're desperately hoping for the innocent students who are fighting for their lives to be able to return back into the arms of their parents and families.
The dim light of candles were also lit in Ansan. In messages they wrote for those still missing, residents expressed how much they regret not being able to rescue them sooner. Students and parents from Danwon High School in Ansan closed the school for the day and filled the area with candlelights. In Sewol, citizens promised they will wait for the missing until the end, along with their families that await them. While search and rescue efforts are growing grim, the nation is holding strong and is showing no signs of letting the last flicker of hope burn out. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Let's get an update on the weather conditions this Tuesday in Jindo. The conditions looks to be improving. Winds should be calmer than yesterday and waves will be milder with reaching no higher than 1 meter. And as of about an hour ago, the waves have been remaining calm at 0.6 meters and winds blowing at 6 meters per second, and water temperature is about at 11.6 degrees Celsius, and the visibility underwater should greatly improve when the current flow is at their slowest list. We have 3 opportunities at 8:13 a.m., 2:16 p.m. and at 7:31 in the evening. And the speed of flow should slow down 1 hour before and 1 hour after these indicated times. And as Myung-kil mentioned earlier, neap tide starts from today, which indicates the difference between high and low tide is at the least. And it's predicted that the search and rescue operation over at the site could take place for 24 hours. And temperatures over in Jindo should be similar to yesterday, rising to 19 degrees Celsius under mostly sunny skies. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back with more updates after 10.
Thank you, Jian. Those are the updates we have for you at this hour. We'll have another special newscast in about half an hour's time as we continue our extended coverage of the search and rescue efforts. Goodbye.